All right, buckle up for this one because today we are diving into a story that honestly sounds like it could be a movie plot, but it really happened.
Yeah.
It's got bank robberies, lemon juice,
Oh, this is a good.
and a cognitive bias we all need to watch out for.
I'm intrigued already.
You might be thinking, how could those possibly all be connected?
Yeah, I'm definitely wondering that.
Well, get ready to find out because it all starts with McArthur Wheeler, who decided to rob not just one, but two Pittsburgh banks back in 1995.
Too ambitious.
And his secret weapon, lemon juice.
Wait, what? Lemon juice.
You heard that right.
Abby?
He was totally convinced that it would make him invisible to security cameras.
Okay, this is where the psychology comes in, right? This has got to be some kind of delusion, right?
Well, let's paint the picture. January 6, 1995,
Okay.
Wheeler and his partner in crime, Clifton Earl Johnson, walk right into these two banks, no masks, no disguises,
Oh.
just guns and faces slathered in lemon juice.
Just straight up lemon juice, like they just squeeze some on their faces.
Pure citrusy confidence.
Wow.
And the thing is, this wasn't some joke or a dare.
You're kidding.
Wheeler truly, deeply believed in his lemon juice invisibility shield.
I mean, where on earth did he even get that idea?
Like, was there some secret society of lemon juice enthusiasts teaching invisibility techniques?
Was there some old wives' tale or
Well,
something?
it's not totally clear where he got it from, but here's what we do know.
Okay.
Wheeler decided to test his theory
Oh.
by taking a Polaroid of himself,
Makes sense.
after, of course, covering his face in lemon juice.
Okay, Andy?
Well, due to some error with the Polaroid, Wheeler wasn't actually in the photo.
Oh, no.
Talk about a recipe for disaster.
So that just cemented the idea in his mind.
Absolutely. Confirmation bias at its finest.
Well, this is rich.
But here's where things get really interesting. This case caught the eye of a Cornell University social psychologist named David Dunning.
Okay, I know that name.
Dunning was completely fascinated by Wheeler's, let's say, unique logic. It raised a question. Could Wheeler's incompetence actually be preventing him from recognizing his own incompetence?
Well, hold on. So he was so incompetent that he couldn't even grasp the concept of incompetence.
It's a bit of a head-scratcher, right?
That's pretty profound when you think about it.
Well, Dunning and his graduate student Justin Kruger set out to test this theory.
Smart.
They designed experiments focusing on things like humor, grammar, and logic.
Okay, classic Dunning-Kruger setup.
And their results. Groundbreaking.
I can imagine.
They found a consistent pattern. Those who scored the lowest consistently thought they did much better than they actually did.
Classic.
They way overestimated their abilities compared to their actual skill level.
The worse they were at something, the better they thought they were at it.
Bingo. This is the heart of what we now know as the Dunning-Kruger Effect.
A cognitive bias that affects, well, probably all of us at some point.
So let's circle back to Wheeler and his lemon juice.
Oh, yeah.
Could this be a real-life example of the Dunning-Kruger effect in action?
Oh, absolutely. It's a textbook example.
It really highlights the absurdity of it all.
His belief in that lemon juice. I mean, come on. It defies basic science and logic.
Right, and that lack of understanding, combined with that Polaroid test,
Oh, yeah.
fuels his overconfidence.
He just couldn't grasp the reality.
It's almost like his lack of knowledge about things like chemistry and optics made him completely blind to the fact that he was missing that knowledge.
Right, the irony.
Mind-boggling.
It really shows how sneaky the Dunning-Kruger effect can be.
Totally.
It's not just about being uninformed, it's about not even realizing you're uninformed.
And this isn't limited to bank robbers and lemon juice.
Oh, absolutely not. This cognitive bias is everywhere in all aspects of life.
Okay, so where else do we see the Dunning-Kruger effect playing out? We'll dive into those examples when we come back.
Stay tuned.
All right, so we've established that the Dunning-Kruger effect isn't just a funny story about a bank robber and his lemon juice.
Right, it's much bigger than that.
It's a real cognitive bias that can affect anyone, anywhere.
Absolutely.
So where else do we see this playing out besides, people trying to become invisible with fruit?
Well, think about this. There was a study published in Psychological Science where researchers looked at data from a giant online trivia game.
Okay, so like a massive online pub quiz?
Exactly. And the players answered all these general knowledge questions and then rated how they thought they did.
Interesting.
And guess what? The results looked a lot like those original Dunning-Kruger experiments.
Meaning?
The people who answered the most questions wrong were also the ones who thought they did the best.
No way. So even when there's a right and wrong answer, people still fall for this bias.
It seems that way, and it tells us that The Dunning-Kruger effect isn't just about not knowing stuff. It's about how we see our own abilities, which can get distorted.
Like a funhouse mirror, you see something totally different from reality.
Exactly.
But how does this work in more complex situations where things aren't so black and white, like politics, for example?
Oh, that's a great one. Research has shown that people with strong political opinions, even if they don't actually know that much about politics,
They think they know more than they do.
yeah, they often overestimate how well they understand all the complicated political stuff.
Everyone thinks they're a political expert these days.
Kind of, and it can lead to some pretty heated arguments, especially when everyone thinks they're right.
Which happens a lot, it seems.
It does, and this tendency to overestimate our political knowledge, it can even affect what news we watch and read.
Makes sense?
It can make us favor sources that just tell us what we already believe, even if those sources aren't very trustworthy.
So it's hard to have a real conversation about important stuff because of the Dunning-Kruger effect.
It can be, and this isn't just about politics either.
Where else?
Think about finances, for example.
Okay, so people making risky investments because they think they're the next Warren Buffett.
That's one example. But there are studies that show that people who overestimate their financial knowledge are more likely to do things like take on too much debt or invest in stuff they don't really understand.
And that can have some pretty bad consequences.
Absolutely.
What about at work? How does the Dunning-Kruger effect show up there?
Imagine this. You have a software developer who's convinced their code is perfect, but it's always full of bugs.
Oh, that's frustrating.
Or a marketing manager who's certain their campaigns are brilliant, but they never actually work.
Classic Dunning-Kruger.
Right, and in a work environment, you'd think those problems would get noticed pretty quickly.
I think so, yeah.
But the thing about the Dunning-Kruger effect is that it can make people not want to hear feedback.
Interesting.
They're so sure they're good at what they do that they just ignore any criticism.
Even if it's meant to help.
Exactly. So it's not just about lacking skills, it's about lacking the self-awareness to even see those gaps and be open to improving.
That's a big problem.
It is, and it can make things really tough for managers and teams because if someone's not aware of their weaknesses, it can affect everyone.
It's not just a funny quirk anymore. It can really have a negative impact.
Absolutely.
So what can we do about it? Is there any way to break free from this? We'll explore that when we come back.
Stay tuned.
All right, so we've gone deep into the Dunning-Kruger effect, from invisible bank robbers to political debates and even those workplace blunders.
It seems like it's everywhere.
Right, and it can really have a big impact.
Definitely.
So now the question is, what can we do about it? Can we actually escape this warped perception of ourselves?
Well, there's always hope, right?
I hope so.
We might not be able to completely get rid of these biases, but we can become more aware of them. And that can help us make better decisions.
Okay, that makes sense, but where do we even start? It feels a bit overwhelming.
It's a journey, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But a good starting point is, well, a little humility.
Humility.
Yeah, it's about realizing that we don't know everything, that our knowledge is always kind of incomplete, and that we can always learn and grow.
So basically, we're all works in progress.
Exactly.
I like that.
But how do we actually put that humility into practice?
That's the million-dollar question.
One way is to actively seek out feedback from others, especially people who have different perspectives than us.
Makes sense, kind of like getting a reality check.
Exactly. It helps us see things from different angles, and it can even help us identify our own blind spots.
Like you don't know what you don't know.
Exactly. And this feedback, it doesn't have to be some big formal thing, you know.
Like a performance review?
Yeah, it could just be asking a coworker for their opinion on something or having a friend read over an email.
And actually listening to what they have to say, even if it's not what we want to hear.
That's a big one. Being open to constructive criticism and seeing it as a chance to grow, not a personal attack.
It's about separating our egos from our ideas and our work.
Exactly. And this is where something called a growth mindset comes in.
Growth mindset.
It means seeing challenges as opportunities to learn and setbacks as just, well, temporary bumps in the road.
So instead of getting discouraged by mistakes, we should see them as learning experiences.
Absolutely. A growth mindset encourages us to, step out of our comfort zones, try new things, and learn from when things don't go perfectly.
It changes how we see failure, right?
It does. Instead of seeing it as the end, we see it as a step toward getting better.
I like that.
It can be really empowering.
Okay, so we've got humility, feedback, and a growth mindset. Anything else we can do to fight the Dunning-Kruger effect?
Well, there's metacognition, which is basically thinking about our own thinking.
Thinking about thinking, that sounds intense.
It's not as complicated as it sounds. It's about being more aware of our own thought processes, biases, and assumptions.
So like taking a step back and examining how we think.
Exactly. And it can involve things like thinking back on past decisions, noticing patterns in our thinking, and questioning our own assumptions.
That sounds like it takes practice.
It does. But the more we do it, the better we get at recognizing our blind spots.
And making better decisions.
Exactly.
So it's not about being super critical of ourselves. It's about understanding how our minds work.
That's a great way to put it.
And it's an ongoing process, right?
It is. We'll never be completely free of biases.
Kind of like weeding a garden. We have to keep working at it.
Exactly. And as we do that, we not only become less susceptible to the Dunning-Kruger effect, but we also become better learners, better communicators, and better decision makers.
So McArthur Wheeler and his lemon juice, it's a funny story, but it's also a powerful reminder that we all have the potential to be more aware of our own thinking.
And to strive for a more accurate view of ourselves.
It all starts with a little humility, a willingness to learn, and a bit of self-reflection.
And who knows, maybe we can all avoid having our own lemon juice moments.
That's a good goal. Thanks for diving into this with me.
My pleasure.
And to all our listeners, keep those minds open and keep questioning, keep learning,